Coming up, it's part 2 of the Night Stalker documentary review with me and Andrew Ramirez. We did part 1 on the last episode. We reviewed episodes 1 and 2 of the documentary series. Went really good. We're deep into it now. We're in the full swing of this murder story that happened in the 1980s. So right now, part 2 is happening. Andrew Ramirez, my brother, joins me. Andrew is our true crime go-to person. He is also the curator of the Murder Mecca Instagram account, where I think you're going to be able to find this episode as well if you're searching through there. Not to mention all his content on true crime. It's all there. Murder Mecca is where you go to find that. He joins me as we tackle part 2 of the Night Stalker documentary series review. Lots of fun stuff in it. A couple things that he brought up that I didn't necessarily know either in the history of the case. Not to mention, we get a little fun with it. We cast this documentary series as if it was a movie. We give it our favorite picks for the roles. Hey, you can too. Do it in your head. So, right now, me and Andrew, Netflix, Night Stalker, part 2, right now. All right, we're back. This is going to be part 2 of the Night Stalker review. Andrew Ramirez back again. We bit off quite a bit with episodes 1 and 2. So here we are with the second half of it. We're doing episodes 3 and 4. We're right in like the meat of this series with 3 and 4. The crimes are happening. We left off with, I'm trying to think how episode 2. They're going to catch him at the dentist, and then we're hoping they're going to catch him when we start episode 3. So, reviewing episode 3, what was your favorite part about the episode?
I think episode 3 is really good because, like we were kind of talking about at the beginning of the series, it kind of sets up all the players, lets you know their credentials, gives you a little history of them, ties it in with good footage, and then I almost feel like the second half is like now like you start getting the payoff. Like almost like episode 3 is kind of like the manhunt aspect of it. So I love that like you get all the players starting to kind of like connect all the dots to like catch this guy, So again, like it's kind of like a conceptual thing, but I think the manhunt aspect of episode 3 is good because like everything's beginning to kind of take shape, like obviously that they're going to catch Richard Ramirez, but this is the part where you can see all of the gears starting to turn for him to get caught. So I love the police work in this episode. I love the details about how that they get the names and they get the answers. I think in this episode, you get the grittiest police work that you get in the whole series. So it's really good for that, I think.
Yeah, I like
the forensics are good.
Oh, right. Yeah. This is sort of like in any other documentary, probably this would have been the most boringest episode. This would have been sort of the middle where, like, if this was a 6-part documentary or an 8-part, this one would have been the one where they did the history of all the characters, where they went back on Gil Carrillo, where they went back on Frank Salerno, where they went back on Richard Ramirez. They could have went back on the LAPD for that matter. This would have been like the boring episode, I think, if this was a longer one, but this one just keeps the chase going because we get the name, we get Richard Mena. It's a fake name, but at least this is the first time we have a name to anybody when they're going to hopefully try and stake him out at the dentist office because now we know he has really bad teeth and he has an impacted molar and he's like, they're going to come back. He's got to come back. And somehow this becomes another close call because they don't even catch him at the dentist.
The whole thing with Richard
comes
Ramirez
and goes.
His teeth, he's like, it like played into his persona too, because all of the victims, one other way they were able to link this guy wasn't just with his shoe print. It was also with the victims saying that the guy had like the worst halitosis they'd ever experienced. So all of the victims were like, he's got terrible breath. Like, it's almost shocking how bad his breath is. Like, they were like, it's not like he wouldn't brush his teeth. Like, it's almost like there was like a rotting animal in his mouth. So So the police were really working with like that whole aspect of the killer too. They were like, something's wrong with this guy's like jaw, or his teeth are really bad, or he's got an infection. They knew something was wrong. So there's the whole aspect of, we'll stake out all the dentist office because there's a good chance that he'll go to the dentist. There's the other aspect of like the psychological part, where it's like, imagine all of these facts being what they are, and then throw in the fact that when he opens his mouth, it's like rotting garbage coming
Yeah,
from his
makes
mouth.
him extra
He's
monstrous
like
for sure.
mythologically evil, So that's just another good detail that I'm glad the series kind of just emphasizes, is have you seen the famous mugshot where he's got his like
Oh yeah, where
his
he's
mouth
showing
like
his teeth.
that? He's
Yeah,
showing his teeth and
that one
he
tells
looks
it
like a
all.
little gremlin. He looks so evil. It's hard to imagine him as this sexy guy that he would later become when you see him posing like that with his gargoyle teeth. It's really freaky. So I love that they play up the dentist aspect, because Richard Ramirez's teeth and just like general hygiene in just as a whole, I always thought was pretty big on like him being a freaky guy.
Yeah, the teeth was a big aspect of him. The bad teeth. I didn't know that there was a potential close call sting operation involving the dentist office, but now it kind of makes sense that his bad teeth would be an element in potentially catching him, because every like victim was like, he had bad teeth. That's bad. That's bad when every victim describes you as having bad teeth.
Right. Of all the things you could remember, it's like, wow, all you remembered was my bad breath. Like, that's definitely a thing that you got to hang on to. If you're a cop, you got to be like, okay, this guy doesn't just have bad breath. There's something seriously wrong with this guy. And then you got Gil Carrillo, who's just smart enough to know to just stake out all of the dentist office in Chinatown.
Yeah.
It's another
And
great
then they had
detail.
the classic like cop blunder where they go to the dentist's office and they're like, all right, we're going to set you up with a security buzzer. When he comes in, you hit the buzzer, it'll come to us. We'll come right down. We'll have guys staked out. And then the dentist office guy's like, where were you guys? What do you mean? He came in. I hit the buzzer. You guys never came in. And they're like, we don't know if it malfunctioned or no one came in. Just the classic, like, he was here. Where were you guys? Like, oh shit, we missed him. We missed him,
It's like
everybody.
also, why not just call him on the phone? You know, it's not like Richard Ramirez is gonna like be super aware of every single phone call. Like the fact that they went out of their way to install this like little like rickety doorbell button like behind the desk, like it's not gonna work. Like why are they doing away with the whole idea of the phone? Like just
Yeah.
be like, as soon as he comes in, don't be obvious, be chill, and then after a few minutes, just kind of go to the back and give me a call and just say, hey, that guy's here, and then hang up. That's all you got to do. The fact
Yeah.
that they tried to install a silent alarm in a fucking shitty dentist office in Chinatown, of course it's not going to work,
Yeah.
Cops are those types of people where they want to do like little like side jobs like that too. They like the equipment and like the thinking that goes into like the secrecy of it all too. But I
Yeah.
was
Almost like
more
they had like a security buzzer in their warehouse and they wanted to use it somehow. And
exactly,
they're
yeah.
like, we'll put it in this dentist office. And when he comes in, you press it, it'll send a signal to us and we'll come in and it totally doesn't work.
I
How
bet
else
it.
could they have got him at the dentist? Like you said, they could have called him. I guess he gave a fake phone number, but they could have called him, say he had a real phone number.
No, they could have just no. But when I say that they could have made a phone call, he could have called Gil Carrillo or something and just been
Right.
like, he's here. There's definitely like no issue with communication if they just use the telephone. That's so
Right.
unfortunate that they didn't do that. But at the same time, it makes for a more interesting documentary. And I could see Gil fumbling with some doorbell wires, like trying to install that thing with his gut hanging out.
Trying to make like a Home Alone sort of
He's having
situation of traps.
it's his job. Yeah, he definitely overdid it there a little bit. But it's all good because it works out. So it's just like a little fumbling thing that actually it's kind of sad, because if they had gotten him there, they probably could have saved a few lives. But
Right.
at the same time, the fact that they got him eventually, just it's all good. But yeah, that's like kind of a scene where the cops are almost doing too much. They're getting away from basics a little bit. But
Yeah.
that's good. I love that part.
They
That is
should have
good.
said like, all right, dentist, call them and be like, we're offering a 50% off Invisalign this month. Come on down. We'll give you some free x-rays, check you out. We've got free lunch going for everybody. Just like ham it up for them to try and
Like
get
a
them back in
sting.
there.
They could have done a sting
Total
operation.
sting.
Yeah.
We got a
I guess
two
it
for
would
one.
be unethical. It would be pretty unethical, but you could never ask a doctor to do this, but he could have like gassed him too.
Oh
They
yeah,
could
could
have
have
been
gassed
like,
them.
they could have been like, when he comes in, just put him in the chair and then just give him anesthesia till he passes out. And then we'll roll in and we'll take it from there. There's no way that the dentist would be able to do that, but that would be another technique,
If the dentist had done that, nobody would ever sign up for anesthesia in the dentist office ever again. Be like,
Oh
dude,
my
I heard a
God.
story where one dude got put out. He woke up arrested. Hell no, I'm never going to the dentist
Could
again.
you imagine if that Yelp review was on the dentist's Yelp page? That my friend went to this dentist and he got put under and woke up in jail. I would be like, this is the worst dentist office that you can go to. Don't
It's
go
hard
there.
enough to get to the dentist. Now you could potentially be arrested. That would be the worst. The
Yeah, you
dentist
can't
would
do
probably
that.
put their foot down.
I wonder how the dentist felt about all that when the cops just barged in and were like, the Night Stalker's been coming to your office. Like, we're going to install a doorbell behind your desk. That way, if you see him come in again, you can ring us. Don't worry. It's cool. We're on top of this. And then, like, they do the doorbell thing and it doesn't even work. That poor dentist was probably ripping his hair out, worried about that. And then it just never came to anything,
They could have just put a cop in the waiting room.
Well, I think they did.
Oh.
But I don't know if their budget
fell
was
asleep.
low. Maybe their budget was low and they couldn't pay a cop to be there like all the time. But they did say that they had like undercover cops just chilling in the waiting room, like to see if he came in, and obviously it never worked out. Those guys.
That was a big miss. Whatever.
Undercover, they're probably not paying that much attention either.
Whatever they were going for, they missed it on that one.
Yeah. I think it's a whole thing. Like, I don't think they were as competent as they were making it seem in every moment,
Yeah, I think that's it. They're talking it up now, but back then they probably stuck some rookie intern cop.
Yes.
Like, go sit and see if you see
know
anything.
There were a few days where two guys were in the office and they were like, wait, Jeremy's here? I thought Jeremy was staking out at the dentist's office. And then they were like, hey, you were staking out at the dentist's office. Like, oh, fuck. And it was like probably already 4:30 p.m. or something when they realized that. Like, there's no
they get to the
doubt
dentist office, it's closed. They're like, oh, that's it.
And then Gil was like, hey, did you guys anything at the dentist office today? And they were all just like, yeah, nothing. Nothing. All quiet today, Gil. Like, we'll get there bright and early tomorrow, though. Like, they did that a lot. Because at the end of the day, I mean, I've never been a cop, but like, I feel like there's days where it's just like any other job, whether you're hunting the Night Stalker or filling out spreadsheets. Like, I feel like there's days where it's just another job. And I think those guys probably fucked up a lot, They kind of like left work early to like go to a basketball game or something. Like, I think that there's those stories that would never get mentioned, like in a cop documentary about the Night Stalker. But that's always on the table. With my experience with like people and their work, like that's totally on the table all the time.
That'd be a great next documentary series, just the greatest cop screw ups in history.
I bet there's a ton more than people know. Yeah.
Yeah, where they set up the sting operation, but it was really the neighbor's house that they needed to break into. All that stuff. That would be great. Great cop screw ups in history.
100%.
I'd watch it.
Just goes to show, like, in the Zodiac case, the Zodiac sent them like ciphers and stuff like that. And it was a high school teacher that solved the cipher. Like, it wasn't even any of the cops. Like, the high school teacher cracked it because they published it, but like they had the whole cop force on it and none of them were like cracking the code, And then a high school teacher did it like, and just sent it into the police station or something like that, maybe the newspaper. And then that's how they cracked the code. So it's a whole thing. I think a lot of times, like, people might inflate the idea of like an investigating police force, It really is just like, I think, a team of 4 to 13 guys who are just like kind of all doing their own thing and like doing their best to
definitely
talk to each other. It's like any other small team, So
I always like when
to think about
when they do like cold case files and the cops like, we've been working on this one for 25 years. We put it down after 8 years and then we we solved the case finally. And then they go, well, how'd you solve it? Oh, somebody called us.
Yeah.
Like, oh, you haven't been working on it for 25 years.
Honestly, a lot of times it's like, oh, you solved it. How'd you do it? It was like someone else got raped, and then we found him because he raped her. And it was like, dude, that doesn't count. Like, that's not like
right. You haven't been working on it for 25 years. You're like, oh, well,
100%. Yeah.
Well, the criminal, he told his neighbor about it, and then the neighbor called us and we solved it. Like, all right, very loose use of the term solved.
It's like, okay, so that's kind of like you were just the one that was holding the ball, like when it happened. Like it's not like you really did anything. Like you just happened to be in that position when someone called in with the tip.
You just had a working phone number.
Yeah, it's that's so true. And the police do kind of take a little too much pride in like patting themselves on the back and like awarding themselves all like medals of honor for like something as simple as like just kind of being in the desk, That's a whole thing too. The thing I like about the Night Stalker series is that's kind of not what happens. They do all the things they need to do to like be able to take credit for catching him, But in some other cases, you're right. Like there is just a major error that
luck, dumb luck.
Like not to get too off the case, but there's that guy, I think the Golden State Killer, who got caught because his cousin or his niece did a DNA test to see what her lineage was. And something that a lot of people don't know about those tests is it comes with a disclaimer attached to it that you sign off on that lets the police use that DNA in a database search to see if you're in any way related to any type of outstanding sexual cases that have DNA or semen or something like that. So they run your DNA against a database just to see what's up with your DNA. And a lot of times it's not the person's DNA, but they'll find a 99% match that it's someone in your family. Yes. So that's what happened to the Golden State Killer is they found out that she was related to the Golden State Killer. And they were like, oh shit, like we just narrowed our suspect pool to 30 people, And then they found out that it was the guy, like no problem,
Mm-hmm.
So that happened totally out of nowhere, And if she had never done that forever, whatever it's called, the 21andMe or the 23andMe test, they would have never caught him. Isn't that insane? That guy was essentially home free. And then his niece did some random test in 2019 that got him busted, It's totally like he probably couldn't even wrap his head around what happened. Like by the time they caught him, I think he was like in his late 70s or early 80s. He's totally out of it, like there's no way they could explain how that worked out for him,
Yeah, the DNA, there's no hiding the DNA.
That
would be funny though. You get the results back. You're like, oh, turns out I'm 33% rapist.
Oh, brother.
We got to check you out. We got to check out some family members on that one.
Kind of how it goes. Hey, good for the police for kind of getting their fingers in that cookie jar.
They're well, if it helps solve crimes, that's good.
If people are going to be vain enough to want to find out like what their heritage is through like this ridiculous DNA test, like then we're going to go ahead and see if they're fucked up.
We're going to snoop around too.
Yeah, totally. Yeah.
We're going to check it out.
That's cool. I like that they do that. And then a lot of people, when they do those tests, they don't know that that's what's going on too. Like they think it's just a fun little game, but they really do double check to see what's going on with you. So, hey, if anyone out there has any sketchy family, watch out,
Well, in this episode too, we get the term Night Stalker is first used. It happens day 142 into the case. The press officially starts calling him the Night Stalker. Some other names, here were the other names: the Walk-in Killer, the Valley Intruder, and then they finally go with the Night Stalker. So my question is, has there ever been a better name for a serial killer than the Night Stalker? It's creepy, it's short, it's scary. What are the other serial killer names that could like be in the top class of serial killer nicknames? Night Stalker is hard to beat. It's got to be number one.
So the first thing about the Night Stalker is Richard Ramirez was actually not the first Night Stalker. If you look up serial killer,
they used it before.
It was used before on the East Area Rapist. They called him the Night Stalker, and he was the Night Stalker for a while. And then when Richard Ramirez got dubbed it, his nicknaming just blew up so much bigger than the first Night Stalker that they shifted his name to the East Area Rapist, or today people refer to him as the original Night Stalker.
Oh man, he got bumped.
Yes, and I'm okay. This could be wrong, but I think that's the guy that we were just talking about who got caught through the DNA test. His name's something D'Angelo or along those lines, and he was the Golden State Killer or the East Area Rapist or the original Night Stalker. So,
it also sort of helps when we finally see a picture of Richard Ramirez. He looks like a Night Stalker. He looks the part. He's creepy. He's skinny. His dark eyes. He looks like what a Night Stalker would look like.
It's a great nickname for him. He definitely fits that role. So insofar as cool nicknames for serial killers goes, I think Night Stalker is definitely up there.
I like Zodiac. I think that's a cryptic, scary one.
Amazing. Zodiac Killer is amazing. The other ones that are good, the Green River Killer.
Oh, I forgot about that one.
That the Green River Killer, I think that's Gary Ridgway. He was the guy who killed a bunch of prostitutes over the course of like, I don't know, a few decades. I think he killed like 70 women. And he was the Green River Killer, which I thought was a pretty intense name. There's the other one. There's the Toy Box Killer. Have you heard of
I don't know that one. That one's pretty scary.
Killer? Spooky. Okay. The Toy Box Killer was murdering people right by Elephant Butte. So do you remember when we took a family trip to Elephant Butte, like in the mid 90s? That killer was active around Elephant Butte when we were at that lake. So what he would do, he would kidnap people, drug them, and then they would wake up in a trailer that had like 14 padlocks on the outside of it, and a video would start playing. And the video was him basically telling them that they were going to live out the rest of their days as a sex slave in his trailer, and he was going to torture them, blah, 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 blah. And it was the most horrific video. And that's what would happen, is they would watch that video and just live in that trailer completely trapped. And then he would come in sometimes and then just like sexually assault the women and torture them and then leave. And then eventually he would just kill them. So they called him the Toy Box Killer because he had like a bunch of torture devices in his, or as he called them, toys, in his trailer or something. So that, I always thought that name was really dark. I always thought that was a really spooky name. But yeah,
that's pretty good.
But the Night Stalker, I think, given like his image and the media frenzy that surrounded it, I think that's got to be one of the most iconic serial killer names. You know, compared to, I don't think, Ted Bundy, I don't really think he has a nickname. They called him the co-ed killer. I think he had.
Oh, really?
He was the co-ed killer, but
doesn't have the same ring. You're right.
Ring, yeah. I think Ted Bundy was always the name for him.
Yeah.
And then Jeffrey Dahmer, I think.
Did he get a name? I never knew a name for him.
He was called the Milwaukee Cannibal, which is accurate.
Almost sounds like a restaurant.
Exactly. Yeah. He was like the Milwaukee Cannibal, and I don't know if anyone really ever went with that,
Or maybe like a libertarian newspaper publication.
The Milwaukee Cannibal. Yeah.
Did you read the Cannibal?
That sounds like it could be like a satire paper or something.
Satire paper. Yeah. It's like, did you read the Cannibal? Oh, dude. Yeah.
I read it. There was
the Milwaukee Cannibal.
There's John Wayne Gacy, the clown. They called him the Killer Clown. He was, that's kind of.
Oh, okay. That's obvious.
If your nickname is the Killer Clown, I feel like that's good. There's all kinds, I love serial killer nicknames, but I don't think anything can top the Night Stalker. Not to be biased just because we're talking about Night Stalker, but the more I think about it, the more iconic Night Stalker is. Like that name strikes fear when you hear it, even down to the references in Joe Dirt and everything like that. Do you remember that scene in Joe Dirt where they reference the Night Stalker? It's like a little one-off joke.
I don't remember. I remember they say something, but I don't remember the joke.
It's like the picture of Richard Ramirez with the pentagram on his hand.
Oh yeah, that's right.
And like it's like on a telephone pole or something like that, and it's like an unfortunate like comparison. Like he unfortunately does that exact thing or something like that. But yeah, it's a whole thing. Like it's in pop culture. Like people reference the Night Stalker all the time. So I think that's got to be one of the greatest serial killer names ever.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. I like that one. I like Zodiac. And then a little grandfathering in for Jack the Ripper. I
of
think
course.
that's a classic scary name. It's vague. It's catchy. It's so old too that it's got that cachet that it's scary that way too.
And then just the physical like sound of Ripper, that
Ripper
like that's
works.
violent, that's so violent. The thing
Mm-hmm.
that the one issue that I do have with Night Stalker, it's not the name. I think it's a great name, but I've always thought it is a little bit of a misnomer because Richard Ramirez, truth is, he didn't do that much stalking. You know, he was more of a smash and grab type where he would roll into the house and then just make sure it was dark and then do his thing. It's
Yeah,
not
that's
like
true. He was
it's not
just
like
sort of an opportunity guy.
yeah, it's not like he was
The
driving
night
by these.
opportunist? Nah, not
Yes,
as
yeah,
good.
it
Not
doesn't
as
have the
good.
same ring.
We
Yeah,
need
and
Stalker.
the impulsive attacker. It's like he's more like if you want to talk about a real Night Stalker, you talk about Dennis Rader. Like that guy would really drive by that house for weeks before doing anything. And like he would learn their routines, he would learn which door they went through. Like he was a stalker. Richard Ramirez would do a bunch of blow and then drive around LA in a stolen car and then just see which houses he
Yeah,
got
just
their
turn
windows in.
doorknobs essentially.
Yeah, like it's almost no knock on his victims or anything, but it's almost shocking that he didn't get shot by one of the residents sooner.
Yeah, it
It
is a
seems like
crazy run that he didn't encounter very little resistance.
yes,
If he's just randomly going into houses, no one had a gun, no one overpowered him,
right,
something
right.
like that. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah. There's some
I,
horrific stories too where it's just a classic case of like missed opportunity or one thing going wrong. There's the worst story in the Night Stalker is the one about the woman who gets her eyes ripped out by him.
yeah,
And the whole thing with her is that he broke into the house and he kills the husband and then he ties her up and then starts ransacking the house. And she actually manages to like slip free from the binds and pulls a shotgun from under the bed. And then he comes back into the room like right when she's leveling the shotgun and like he freezes and then she like pulls the trigger and it turns out that the gun is empty, like it's not loaded. And then Richard Ramirez is like furious. So then he shoots her like 3 times. And then that's when he goes to the kitchen and he gets the knife and he like cuts her eyes out. Partly because he's crazy and he's satanic. And then the other part, at least in the thinking is that he was like really pissed that like he almost got shot by this woman. If only she had one shell in the shotgun, the whole course of history would have changed. Like he would have just been killed right there. So
wow.
I was kind of shocked they didn't talk about that in the
Yeah, they didn't
documentary.
mention that at all. I didn't
That's
know that.
that whole story is in the Night Stalker book by Philip Carlo. It's all about how she gets the jump on him and almost blows him away, but it's not loaded. It's horrible. It's one of those parts in the book where you read it and your heart just sinks when you find out that the gun's been loaded. It's so bad. Yeah, and then she knows it, and then it's over. He kills her, he shoots her, and it just mutilates her body. It's awful. But I was kind of shocked they didn't include that in the story. But yeah, that's just a whole another piece of information about him that just makes him so terrifying.
I wrote a few other potential nicknames for Richard Ramirez that probably wouldn't get accepted. I got the low rent wrangler.
How dare you?
I got the apartment approacher.
Oh.
And Satan's little helper.
Satan's little helper. That's probably got the best ring to it. Satan's little helper I like. Satan's little helper. What'd you say? The apartment approacher?
The apartment approacher. Yeah, he only breaks into low rent places,
That's a little understated, but the apartment approacher at least has the alliteration,
Yeah, I went alliteration on that one. Apartment approacher, the low rent wrangler, and Satan's little helper.
Yeah. I'll go with that.
Yeah, not bad. Put it in the back burner.
Yeah. Who do you think? Well, I mean, it always makes me wonder about this. Like, it's not like his name was Night Stalker. Like the Zodiac gave himself the name Zodiac. So he gets to take all the credit for that name. But I always wonder who was the first person to write Night Stalker to reference Richard Ramirez.
I had it in here as I just assumed it came from the press.
But yeah, but like, I wonder which writer did it, you know?
Oh, I
Because that's a
see.
stroke. That's a stroke of genius right there for that writer to be like, we should call him Night Stalker, you know?
Hmm.
And then it's almost like everyone started calling him that, you know?
Yeah.
So it was like, I wonder who, not that you can copyright it or anything or like get royalties for it, but I just like to know the writer who did that, you know? Night
Hmm.
Stalker's the name for him. So somebody had to have said it first, you know?
Yeah,
Uh,
that's true. Who was the
yeah,
first one?
it's interesting. Yeah, it's pretty
Because we saw
interesting.
the early nicknames for him didn't catch on.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, well yeah, the Valley Intruder.
Valley Intruder and the
Valley
Walk-In
Intruder I thought
Killer.
was kind of nice. I think Valley Intruder adds a lot
I
to
like the
his idea.
Valley part. Yeah,
Yeah.
something with Valley's good.
Mm-hmm. Valley Intruder, and then what was the other one? The Walk-In Killer.
Walk-In Killer. It's
Walk-In
kind of
Killer,
like Killer's too easy. We need a
and
better word than Killer.
walk-in makes me think more of like a walk-in closet or like a real estate pitch. You know, like I don't know if I like walk-in killer. It sounds like he's like an object in the house that you can walk into, you know? I don't know. I don't know if I like it. They definitely picked the right one with Night Stalker, no doubt in my
Yeah,
mind.
it fits
Yeah.
him. And then you see his face and you're like, that's a Night Stalker.
Oh yeah. Hey, well, I hope you don't give up on Satan's little helper. That might
Satan's
have
little
that might have
helper.
a lot to say about it.
Yeah. Then the big turn in the episode for me though, was when all of a sudden we have a murder in San Francisco.
Yes.
You heard that, like if this was a drama and you're following along the city and the different cities in LA, you're like, oh, he's over here, he's over there. Then you get a murder in San Francisco. You'd be like,
Mhm.
oh man, this guy's on the move. He's out of LA now. Total twist to it. That's where we meet the detective Frank Falzon, the San Francisco detective, and they sort of start to team up and piece the evidence together that it is indeed the same guy. And then for me, the best part becomes when they finally get the name. They finally get the Richard Ramirez name. And I think it was like somebody called in and said like, hey, my dad is essentially a drifter and he's described this guy to me. And they're like, let's go talk to him. And then they interrogate the dad in the back of the police car. And he's like, you tell me the name. God damn it. You tell me that. I was like, I'm not telling you the name,
Yeah.
pig. And then they yell at each other and then he gets the name from him. And then of course, another great cliffhanger. It just ends right there.
Yeah.
So that was my favorite part is Detective Frank Falzon recreating his interrogation.
That was an amazing part because that is again like finding the footprint like in the garden. Like that's another just moment of classic old school police work, you know?
Yeah.
Just given the old Batman style interrogation,
Yeah.
like
He's just
in the
shaking him,
back seat. Yeah.
pretending to punch him.
It's crazy. Yeah, it's like that's how he did it. And then he got the name and it actually led them to the killer. It's
Yeah.
amazing. Hey,
Yeah.
I
San
think
Francisco
so.
gets the name.
So during that part, the whole story is the way I remember it. Maybe I'm not remembering it totally right, but it's like Richard Ramirez would take little trinkets and stuff from like the victims' houses, and
Oh,
then
right.
then he would give them to a fence, and then the job of the fence was to sell them to pawn shops or whatever, and like that way the actual criminal didn't have to do the selling too, you know, like but like didn't the fence kind of realize like all this shit corresponds with like the murders and like people who
Yeah.
who are missing like gold watches, like this guy's
Yeah.
literally
I think
giving
it
me
was
those gold
there was a
watches.
boom box that
Yeah.
they got that they were able to match up to one of the victims and
Yes.
one other thing. But yeah, you're right. It was a couple items and this guy sold it. So they knew there was a connection and then they
Yeah.
got him from
And then the
there.
guy was like just creeped out by this guy. He was like, I think this is the Night Stalker. This guy's
Right.
bringing me all these things that like are relating to these stories that I'm hearing about in the news. You know, what a creepy moment for that guy to realize that like he's maybe been interacting with a serial killer. That's like a question I wonder, like in my day-to-day life, is like, how many serial killers have I talked to that I just don't know? You know, like think of all the people you interact with every day. You know, I'm sure you know, I'm not taking stolen goods from people and selling them at pawn shops, but like think of like the cashiers and like the people that you pass in the street. Like it is a freaky concept. It's like some of these people could just be like killing people, you know, killing 10 people a year or something like that. And
Yeah.
that's what this guy had in his life, and he like turned him in and it turned out to be the guy, you know. That's really crazy.
Yeah. I like that he like It was like he's like, hey, this might be the guy. Yet he's still resistant to give any information to the
I
cops.
know, it doesn't make any sense.
Like, I'm not telling you shit. You're the
Why bring it
cops.
up? Why bring it up even?
So yeah,
Yeah.
that's how we start episode 4. Is we have the name. They're able to find a mugshot, and we get the first visual of him from there. And then essentially the hunt is on
Mm-hmm.
for him. And it's kind of weird that they're afraid. I think there's a big beef where San Francisco PD wants to release the name and the mugshot, and LAPD's like, no, don't do it, because if he sees it, he's going to flee. So there's this sort of like back and forth. And then ironically, they go to the bus station. I think I remember this right. It's like, if he leaves, we're going to be at the bus station, but he's coming into the bus station. He had left and he's coming back to LA.
Right,
He was
right.
already out of LA.
So that's an
What a
enforcement.
weird coincidence that was.
Well, yeah. So the thing that obviously they didn't know this because they didn't know Richard Ramirez was the guy, but Richard Ramirez was keen to take Greyhound buses places. So he was taking buses back to El Paso. He was taking buses to Arizona. He would take buses up to San Francisco all the time. So he was constantly kind of operating not just in LA, but in the entire region of like the Southwest, the West, and then kind of Northern California too. So when they found his picture and linked the fingerprint to his picture, just by sheer coincidence, like you said, he was in El Paso, or if not in El Paso, he was in
I think
Arizona
they said he was in
visiting.
Arizona visiting his
Yeah,
brother.
visiting his bro, and he didn't know that they had a picture. So he just happened, as part of his schedule, was returning to LA that day. And the police, like you said, all were figuring that their guy would be trying to get out of LA. So like the least surveilled area in LA was probably the incoming buses. Never in a million years would they think that he would come back to LA after his pictures published there.
Yeah.
So it weirdly worked out incredible for Richard Ramirez. Nobody thought he would do that. So that's why he was able to just cruise right in. And then I think the documentary says he makes a couple of undercover cops and notices there's obviously something
there's
going
some
on
cops
here.
there.
And then he just gets right out of there. And then eventually gets noticed at the 7-Eleven or the liquor store or something. And then that's when kind of the chase is on.
Yeah, I think they said
Yeah.
he sees the newspaper with his picture at the liquor store. And let's see, he sees his picture. I wrote down, then he gets on a bus. A passenger pulls the little cord of the bus, gets off the bus and calls the police from a payphone. Then Richard Ramirez gets off the bus and he starts running across the freeway. He tries to carjack someone. People start chasing him, and eventually they catch him, and somebody kind of beats him and holds him still with like a tire iron or like a piece of metal or something.
Mm-hmm.
And then that's when we see, which is really good, we see the original footage of him in the back of a police car. And they put a big old bandage on his head because the citizens had sort of attacked him. And he's sitting there like his eyes are huge. He doesn't know what's going on. It was really trippy that they had that footage of him, and just one cop is sort of holding him there till other ones get there. That was really good. Had just the crowd had sort of gathered, and they caught him, and he's in the car, and we have the actual footage, no recreation needed.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's an incredible shot. The one where you see him in the back and he's all exhausted and sweaty, and then somebody hit him over the head with a lead pipe, and he's got that huge bandage on, and he kind of looks like someone who realizes that it's all like, he realizes that he's in a lot of trouble. He's got that look in his face where he's almost like a shocked animal. It looks like he maybe isn't fully aware of it, but he knows that everything's going to change now. So it's kind of like he started the second half of his like career as like that type of person, is like, now all of it is over, and now like it's going to take on a different form. Like almost like someone in high school got busted doing something really bad. That's like kind of the part where you can see a lot of fear in him and a lot of like uncertainty, which in my mind makes it kind of seem like he isn't batshit crazy. It kind of seems like he knows that everything that he was doing was really wrong, and like now it's all come to an end. So if he had been laughing maniacally in the back seat and like drawing pentagrams all over the windows and stuff. That he could also be that guy, you know? But the fact that he's totally subdued and just really out of it makes it seem really humanizing to me, that he realized that everything he had done was wrong, and now he was going to come to kind of have to face up to it or like take responsibility for it. It's really interesting. I love that shot too. He's like a busted kid, kind of, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he just has this sort of rudimentary wrap on his head.
Mm-hmm.
He's got just gauze on him, and he just looks like you're right, just like a scared animal. He doesn't fully grasp how heavy this all is, and there's good footage of it. So that was my favorite part of
Hey, the
episode
funny
4
thing
is
is
that
too, is
footage.
that the I think the police officer that arrests him, his name is Andy Ramirez.
Yeah, you're right. He has the
Which I
Ramirez last name.
enjoyed. Yeah, and his name's Andy too. I always had a little connection to that. So
Yeah,
he
you're
gets
right. That
arrested
was
by
kind of
this
weird too.
guy. He gets arrested by this guy, and essentially the police officer like has to save him from the crowd, because the crowd was gonna like beat him to death. And Richard Ramirez even says one guy was like running in to get a gun so they could shoot him. And then the cop pulls in, and then kind of like, instead of subduing Richard Ramirez, he kind of has to like subdue the crowd. He was like, Richard Ramirez wasn't going to go anywhere. He was like in a puddle of sweat, just like unable to move. So he just put some handcuffs on him, and then Andy Ramirez's whole job was to just keep people off of Richard Ramirez, which is like kind of freaky, you know, like what an intense situation for a cop to have to be in, to know that they've got the Night Stalker. And weirdly enough, that's the least of his worries, you know, like the real concern is all these dudes with wife beaters on who are trying to hit him with pipes, you know, like just again, like what a moment, like it's almost like a TV show, you know? So you couldn't make it up. It's the most incredible catch too, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was a different time where anybody on the street at any time could either have a wife beater t-shirt on or just no shirt in general. I think they're like interviewing members of the crowd, and somebody just doesn't have a shirt on. It was
right.
You could walk around without a shirt pretty normal back in those days. Or if you needed to, a white beater t-shirt.
Yes. Yeah, the crowd is
that was normal attire.
All the people who are like kind of commenting on it, like one guy's clearly drinking a beer out of like a coffee mug. Like they're all like, it's the crew, you know, like I think he was caught like in a very like working class part of LA too.
Yeah, I think they said Hubbard Street.
Yeah,
which
like
is
like
downtownish.
Eastish downtown.
Yeah,
vibe.
Yeah.
So that's like the area where like you're gonna get a lot of like classic 90s, like I don't know, like you know, like the LA vibe with the cholo riding across like the chest and stuff, like that's that experience. So it would be a totally different thing if he was caught in Malibu or something like that, you know?
Right.
But the fact that he was caught in that area, it's like, yeah, there's a good chance that they're going to want to beat the living shit out of him, you know, if they see him, you know? So yeah, it's like, it's the perfect ending for his story, you know? It's like he kind of returns to the streets, and he is like rejected by them. Like everybody hates him, like in the streets, you know? So
yeah,
really, really intense, like really intense ending. If you didn't know that's how it was going to go, you know?
Yeah. I'm trying to think, if you didn't know this story, how you would react to this, hearing this story for the first time. It has so many elements to it. They're like citizens essentially catch him. He's on the loose, all these sort of like random murders, the detective. It's a crazy story to take in for the very first time.
It totally is. Yeah. And then he goes in the police car and then gets taken to court, and then it just becomes a whole nother thing. You know,
and then
like,
it blows up in another way. You're right.
He wasn't anticipating like, now it's time for me to become an AC/DC rock and roll sex symbol. You know, like it's not like that was on his mind. Like it just turned into that, and then he flowed with it. He just totally went with it. Like it only plays into him being a normal person who wants attention even more, you know, because like once that was dangled in front of him, he totally ran with it, you know? It's not like they were forcing him to put on black aviator sunglasses, you know, like he was choosing to do that, and like chose to grow his hair out into the mane, you know, and kind of did a little Jim Morrison impression.
Yeah,
you know?
he looks like Jim Morrison.
He did a little Jim Morrison impression because he knew that he could get more attention doing that. So if you don't know the story, it's one, I don't know how you wouldn't know the story because it's kind of like embedded in pop culture now. Like you had to have seen a picture of Richard Ramirez in court if you've just been around, But if you don't know the story, it's shocking. You're like, how could this get any more interesting? And then like it does,
Yeah.
It's really great. Yeah, it's really interesting.
Yeah.
So
Well, the episode 4 ends with the court stuff, which I know you sort of needed to have the court stuff, but you almost didn't need it as far as the investigation, but you needed to have how he became popular, how he was shouting out during the trial. He yells out "Hail Satan"
yeah,
as he
yeah,
leaves. Like it's
yeah,
like his it's how he says goodbye.
yeah.
So they add it. They're pretty quick with it too, but
It's very high
they could
school.
have they could have dragged it out if they wanted to, a whole nother episode or two. And
Yes.
they talk about his defense lawyers, but I thought they put it in a nice little package of keeping the court stuff pretty quick. He was arraigned, then they convicted him, and then he was off to jail. So
Right. That's also, I think that just kind of plays into the overall thesis of like not wanting to focus too much on Richard Ramirez. I think their whole aim was to hit on Gil Carrillo and Frank Salerno's partnership and kind of like the effect that the Night Stalker case took on them and also like their family life and stuff. I thought that was like Gil Carrillo's wife gets, I think, a little more screen time than even Richard Ramirez, So I think they were kind of going for that. And then they realized that they did have to address like some aspects of Richard Ramirez as a person. And they chose to make that the whole court frenzy, which was good. I thought it was tastefully done. And I thought they didn't waste unnecessary energy on it like a lot of documentaries do. They established that he was really sexy and that there were lots of spooky goth chicks who went there to look at him and that it was a whole thing, and then they kind of just shift out of it, So I like that because that's kind of like tried and true territory that documentaries touch on with Richard Ramirez. And I like that this documentary didn't want to do that as much. So I appreciated that. But there's a whole thing during that court trial. Do you remember?
The court trial could be its own thing. You're right.
So there's so many creepy things that happened. The biggest thing is that during the trial, so it was very widely publicized, and every single day was like a summary on local news channels, And then one day a juror went missing, and they were like, "What the hell? Like, we're missing a juror." And they found the juror murdered in his or her apartment. And everybody thought that it was tied to the Night Stalker case. They were like, the Night Stalker is pulling strings. Like, the Night Stalker left a message in court to say, kill juror number 3 or whatever juror it was. And like, that was in the headspace, is that one of the jurors was completely coincidentally murdered during the trial. It had no connection to the Night Stalker. But before people knew what to do with it, they thought that the Night Stalker had snuck out of jail and killed her. They thought that the Night Stalker had told a friend to do it. So there was a lot of paranoia going on in the air during that time that I think the documentary rightfully doesn't go too into, but like you said, they could do a whole nother documentary.
Yeah, it would have been a footnote. It's interesting, but it would have been a footnote to the actual story.
Yeah, totally creepy. And then they had to bring in a substitute juror, and everyone thought that juror was going to get murdered, and like security was tightened. It was a whole frenzy, So the documentary scratches the surface on that, but there's 8 more hours you could go into there, and it would be totally interesting. But I respect how Night Stalker, like as a series, doesn't do that. They didn't need to do that.
Yeah,
so it was good stuff.
Well, if we're making this our movie, we cast Frank Salerno last time. We cast Gil Carrillo. Now we have Frank Falzon to cast as well. Those are my 3 characters in there. So in picking Frank Falzon, I have only one and only pick. It's got to be Nicolas Cage.
Oh, nice.
I want some intense interrogation Nick Cage.
Yes.
I basically want Nick Cage from 8mm.
Yes.
That's the Nick Cage I want. Just crazy, could fall off the cliff at any second.
That's a great interrogation angle to take on Frank Falzon.
Yeah, because that's his
Nick
big scene,
Cage,
is the interrogation in my mind.
yeah, no, and Nick Cage has those eyes where he can just like get real bulgy eyed and like give you that interrogation that you'd want. And he would do it. He would bring the thunder. I think Nick Cage is a great pick. Um, the one concern, maybe not even concern, maybe just a note, is that wouldn't Nick Cage, I guess since he's playing the young version, he wouldn't have to gain much weight. But I would want him to beef up a little bit, because he does get pretty thick in his later years,
Oh yeah,
So,
yeah, that's
so,
true.
but it depends because it depends what Nick Cage you want, what era. Like if you're going Snake Eyes, I think he might be a little skinny, but if you've seen like some of Nick Cage's like latest work, like have you seen Mandy?
No, I didn't see that one.
He's a little like beefier in Mandy.
Okay, so
You might be
he could put on a few.
You might be interested in a 2019, 2020 era Cage too. The guy I wanted, so I picked a young one and an old one. The old, I was thinking old Frank Falzon. I went with James Gandolfini. I think he would be.
You got to raise him from the dead.
He's got to come back to life.
He's got to come back to life.
But once we get him back to life, I think he's going to do a great job, like playing that like kind of thicker set, like really intelligent but kind of gritty cop, like looking back. I think that would be good. And then this is a really random one, but for young Frank Falzon, do you remember the movie Superbad?
Yeah.
Do you remember like the creepy guy who asks them if they have a MySpace?
I remember that line.
That actor's name is Joe Lo Truglio.
Oh, okay. I think I know the face now. What else is he in? He's in other stuff.
He's like a bit character with the bulgy eyes who does like a lot of stuff. And I think he would be a good young Frank Falzon. I thought
good bit.
He's got the curly hair that kind of pops out, and he's got like the sideburns and stuff. And then obviously he's got those bulgy eyes. So I thought he could do a great job and kind of be like a under the radar, like great actor for that role.
Oh, that could be good. All right. So we got our cast. And then as our final piece for casting it, we have to cast Richard Ramirez himself. I did a little research and I found everybody who's played him in anything or been tied to him in entertainment. Lou Diamond Phillips has played him.
Yes.
There was an episode of American Horror Story where this actor named Zach Villa played him, who looked really close to him.
The Zach Villa one is good.
And then James Franco has been said to play him, although he never has.
Oh.
And then the last interesting tidbit I found out was John Stamos in the 80s had this photographer who took a lot of pictures of him and ran stories of him in the teen magazine Tiger Beat.
Yeah.
And that lady is the lady who ended up marrying Richard Ramirez in prison.
Oh, what's her name? Doreen Loy or something like that?
Yeah. I saw the article. It's a bit of a red herring where it says John Stamos ties to Richard Ramirez. And I'm like, what's this about? And some lady that did stories about him in the 80s ended up marrying Richard Ramirez later. So totally, that's the only connection. He says they were close at the time, but I don't know how true that is. But that was my entertainment connections.
Have you heard that story? This could be totally made up, but I've heard this on a few like Reddit boards. And it's where like, so this was in the 80s after Richard Ramirez had been caught. Apparently, Sean Penn was put in jail for like a domestic abuse case or something like that. And they threw him in like general population or something. And like, Richard Ramirez was also in that jail during that time. And even though Richard Ramirez was in solitary or like he was kept away from everybody, there was still lots of passing. And one time Sean Penn said that a little note fell into his door, and it was a note from Richard Ramirez that was like, I'm a huge fan of yours. Like I thought your fucking work and blah, blah, blah was amazing. Like love to have an autograph, bro. And apparently, like Sean Penn, like sent back, like "Go fuck yourself." And, like
signed creep. Sean Penn. He's like, yes,
yeah, exactly. Apparently, Sean Penn put like "fuck you, you creep." Like I don't da 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 da, and like that was like a correspondence that he had with a Night Stalker or something like that.
Wow, I wonder if that's true or not.
But I heard that story.
That sounds like a reach. I can't imagine Richard Ramirez would have any contact with other prisoners.
I don't know. I'm
and I
always
thought
like,
Richard Ramirez was in San Quentin. Maximum
but
lockdown.
he wasn't in San Quentin immediately. Like during
I
the
see.
trial and everything, he was in a jail in LA. And since
Gotcha.
that trial
So been
went
around
on
that
for
time.
about 3.5 years, he was in that LA jail for a little under 4 years, you know? And that's when they say that Sean Penn like flowed through the jail.
Gotcha.
Yeah, once he was convicted and sentenced, then he moved to San Quentin for the rest of his life. And that's the prison he shared with I think Charles Manson and a few other real famous serial killers, a couple of hitmen and stuff. But yeah, San Quentin was the end of his experience. Like that's when he married the reporter and did the book with Philip Carlo and all of that, and then died of cancer like in 2009 or
2013, I
something.
think.
Okay, yeah. At like in his 50s or something like that.
50s,
you know? So really bizarre, like kind of quiet,
bizarre start to
ending
finish
for him. Because keep in mind, like Jeffrey Dahmer got beat to death in prison. That guy got killed with a dumbbell or something like that, and like had to have like a closed casket funeral. Like everyone kind of thought that was going to happen to Richard Ramirez in one way or another, and totally didn't. You know, like he just died of cancer in a hospital, you know? So kind of really bizarre, like normal ending to such a violent life, you know?
Totally bizarre.
Really bizarre. Yeah. You know, you'll never get sentenced to death if you're on death row in California. So he was always fully aware of that, you know? So kind of just lived out his days, was kind of led to pasture, like with other serial killers, you know? Really, really bizarre, like ending to that life, you know? So that's how it ends, you know?
Who do you have as the final casting for Richard Ramirez? I have my pick. I only have one.
I don't even know if you'll like, maybe you know this guy. His name's Ezra Miller. If you've seen a picture of Ezra Miller, he's in Perks of Being a Wallflower. He's in We Need to Talk About Kevin. He's got the Richard Ramirez look, I think. And I think he could play like a really good young Richard Ramirez.
Ezra Miller. Let me get he's got the jawbones.
Oh yeah. And he's great. Like he plays unstable characters a lot too. So I think he could do a great Richard Ramirez, and I think he could really bring.
He looks like him. That'd be a good
eyebrows and the hair. He could do a lot of work, I think. So I think he would kick ass.
You sort of need that Hispanic / kind of Asian face mix is what you need. And in that, just it's really hard to have that like gaunt look, you know, caused by massive drug use. But that's the look you need, is that really empty face. Look, that's a good pick. I've never seen that guy before.
Yeah, he's definitely, and his style is like very Richard Ramirez too. Unstable, kind of wacky. Like it's perfect. I think he could do a great role. What about you? What's your pick?
I went with Adam Driver.
Oh,
I think he's got the height. I think he's got the cheekbones. I think he's got the tortured sort of acting chops in him as well. And then the key is going to be if they can either grow the hair or make the hair just right. Because Richard Ramirez has really full, scraggly hair, and he's got a few different looks. He's got the short, messed up look. He's got the Jim Morrison look. It's going to be, you got to hit it just right. And you can't make it like cool long hair. It's got to be just like unhealthy long hair.
Okay.
So yeah, my pick was Adam Driver.
Adam Driver would do a great job. I love Adam Driver kind of in a position where he's forced to kind of like just really develop his hair for like a main part of his role. You know, like
I feel like it's 75% of the character is the hair.
Yeah, he would, because he always has good hair in all of his roles, but I would love for it to take center stage and for them to like kind of curl it a little bit, you know, like I would just like to see him play that role. I think that would be great. I'm a big Adam Driver fan. He would dig into it so well. He would do a great job. I think, wonderful. Adam Driver would kick ass. He would. Richard Ramirez has a very unique kind of voice that like I think Adam Driver would have a good
Right. The
time
voice
getting
is
into it.
next. You're right. It's
Yeah.
going to be hard to pull off that voice.
How can he do? I don't even want to try and do an impression, but like, it's that type of voice where like actors don't typically talk like that. It's like almost like the English is a second language approach to speaking. And like Adam Driver would have to kind of figure that out a little bit.
Yeah.
It would be great though. He would rock. Would you want? Would you? Okay, there wouldn't be that much change, but would you want Adam Driver to play the whole Richard Ramirez character, or would you want him to kind of start as the actor with the courtroom, and you have like a different actor play him leading up to the courtroom? Like kind of a smaller, more sinewy looking actor.
Right, because if you have someone play Richard Ramirez the murder years, and then someone different for the court stuff, you almost would like the courtroom Richard Ramirez more.
Yes.
And he might be a sympathetic figure. So it might be smart to switch actors because there's no liking him. So you might as well have a totally different guy play the bad stuff.
Yeah.
And then you could actually gain some entertainment joy out of the courtroom years and actually like the character more, or at least find him more sympathetic and entertaining. So maybe give Adam Driver the courtroom Richard Ramirez years, have him paint the pentagrams on his hands and have him yell, "Hail Satan," and "I'll see you in Disneyland" line. I think that'd be fun.
I think Adam Driver would definitely be the more domesticated indoor version, Richard Ramirez. And then, like you were saying, that creates a little bit of like a psychological transition that you have to
that
make.
way we could separate the horrific.
Because that's kind of how it went. Like no one could ever picture that guy with the glasses and the fluffy hair, like literally bathing in the blood of an old woman, like in a full moon. Like it was just like, you can't wrap your head around that, So like the artistic value of like having two different people doing it would kind of establish like how it felt to see someone and then hear those things that he did. Like it's almost a different person, I love it. That's so good. Do you have an actor in mind for scrawny, evil Richard Ramirez?
I didn't think, did we already use Michael Pena? Oh yeah,
we do him again if you want. I love when movies do that. When you find out that like one actor
Michael Pena.
Jumanji does that with the dad. The dad in Jumanji is also the hunter.
And let's get the Jumanji dad.
You can do that. You can totally do that. It would be so beautiful if like Michael Pena, the cop, also played Michael Pena, like this Night Stalker too. Then it would kind of be like he's hunting himself, like he's trying. It's a metaphor.
The most dangerous game.
Fucking metaphor, bro. Like it's so good. So I'm all for it. If Michael Pena's game and the price is right, I feel like he could do a great job playing the Night Stalker and then playing Carrillo
and the detective.
The only thing is that they would have to film them at different times of the year because like
this would be a hard project.
So fat to play Gil Carrillo, and then he'd have to lose like 100 pounds to play.
He would have to lose 100+ pounds.
So unhealthy doing that, but I think the movie would be better for it. So I would love to see Pena play both.
Michael Pena's got to be in this in some way, shape, or form.
Exactly.
No matter what. It's like, Pena, this is your vehicle. This is your chance, man.
Somebody's had to have given him a Night Stalker pitch already, right?
It's got to have been out there. He's just waiting for the right one.
It's such a famous story, and it's so like LA iconic, like media story. Like, I can't believe Pena hasn't been hit with a Night Stalker script yet.
Yeah.
He's
waiting for the right script.
Well, now that the Netflix series is flowing, he might be interested.
Yeah.
I could see now that the heat is on, I think it could become a whole thing.
Let's keep the fingers crossed. The Night Stalker documentary series is out on Netflix. It's really good. I enjoyed every part of it. I learned new stuff from watching it, and I thought the filmmakers did a great job with it. So go watch it. It's an excellent watch. And don't do it at night though. Do it during the day.
Yeah, do it during the day. Lock your doors. Make sure your windows are closed. If you can watch it on the second or third floor of a building, that's always better too, because it'll spook you. It'll freak you out. Even
great freaky feelings you get from this. They did it well.
Even the cop says at one point, like Gil woke up and like felt that the Night Stalker was in his house, and then like got his gun and like cleared the whole house. And was like, I was convinced that the Night Stalker was in my house. Like I heard a little sound and I was like, he's here. Like, why wouldn't he be? He does this. So that
Yeah.
feeling of paranoia, like, really gets into your head too. Like, especially if you've got like little ticks and like scratches in your house that just happen. Like, I was freaked out. I was totally freaked out.
You will have that moment. You're right.
Yeah.
During watching this, you'll have that moment where you go check your door, or you just sort of open your eyes and look around. So
Yeah.
it achieves that scariness feeling for sure, which I thought it did a great job of. Excellent. So everybody go watch it. This was our Night Stalker review for
Check it
Andrew
out.
Ramirez, Patrick Ramirez. Thank you, everyone.
All righty. Thanks, everybody.
man.
See ya. All right. Sounds good, man. See ya.
Okay, that is it for the episode. That wraps up Night Stalker, the documentary series on Netflix. I truly hope you go check it out. I really enjoyed it as a documentary, as a history lesson, as a snapshot of the 1980s as well in LA. So it is up now. Go check it out. And that was our review of the second half of it. Me and Andrew breaking it down as usual, learning stuff. Don't forget, check out his Instagram, Murder Mecca. That's where he has all his true crime content, so you can see what he's all about too. We might have him back. Maybe we'll do a series on true crime with him, make it a regular thing. So put that thought out there. Don't forget, my other show, the Sunday Night Talk, is coming out. We're on to the conference championship. By the time you listen to this, we may already know who's in the conference championship. So look to the future. Thank you, everybody, for listening. Thank you, Andrew Ramirez, for joining me. Thank you, the filmmakers of Night Stalker, did an excellent job. And be on the lookout for future episodes of my show. Thank you for listening, everybody. We'll see you next time.